Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
A reminder that Donnie and Dolly is presented by Able Auctions. Just after the top of the hour, we bring in from Sekeres and Price and the Rink-Wide podcast, Jeff Paterson, in the wake of a 3-1 Canucks victory in Nashville last night. Jeff, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. They're coming home. They're coming home with a couple of wins. And it's funny, isn't it, what a little bit of perspective. You know, if they win the first two on the road trip and then limp home, you're thinking like, oh, man, opportunity squandered. Well, they don't get anything out of the first three games, but they kind of built to the back end, and all of a sudden, Elias Pettersson is scoring. Thatcher Demko looks like he's back in that December groove, and now you can't wait for this homestand to test themselves again against some really good teams in Florida and the St. Louis Blues.
No Garland, no Horvat, no Halak. The Canucks managed to win last night in Nashville at the end of a long, tough road trip. What did they show you?
Yeah, I think they showed me that when their best players are on, that they have a chance to compete and come out with victories. And early in the road trip, you go into a place like Tampa Bay, you played hard. They held the Bolts to 21 shots on goal, but they were not going to beat Tampa with offense from Matthew Highmore and Tyler Motte. Like, you had to get something from higher in the lineup when Stamkos is scoring and Braden Point is sealing the deal into an empty net. And so it really wasn't until Horvat scored in Carolina, but obviously there wasn't enough offense there. But look at that Washington game. Pettersson with a pair. Horvat gets the game winner. Miller into an empty net. Last night it's Pettersson again. It's Brock Besser who gets the game winner. I mean, those are your go-to guys. And so when they show up and when they find the score sheet, and when you get the backbone goaltending that Thatcher Demko can deliver, let's be honest, Demko most nights gives the Canucks an advantage in goal. Now, maybe in Tampa, he was out-goaltended by Vasilevsky. No shame in that. Vasilevsky's become one of, if not the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. But elsewhere, for Thatcher Demko, just to, 5 games in 8 nights, the back-to-backs, we know the story of Halak going into protocol hours ahead of the game in Carolina, and Demko had to step in and play there and then deliver to win the next day. Doesn't give up an even-strength goal here in either of these last 2 games. And again, I just think that that's an advantage that the Canucks have over most teams, and they have to make it pay, and they got a bounce last night. Let's be honest. They saw Dave Rittich at the other end of the ice, and the goaltending mattered. Thatcher Demko was the better goaltender. Canucks come out with a good win at the end of the road trip, and now they're coming on home.
Elias Pettersson bouncing from left wing or from center to left wing back to center last night because of Horvat's absence. What was different the last 2 games for him?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you can say the bounces, although he didn't get one on the second opportunity last night where he hit the crossbar. But Carolina, he hits the post at 2-1. He scores there. Maybe it's a different game. It didn't happen for him. I like the move he made to the inside in Washington and got that shot away, and that went post and in, where a lot of his shots seem to go post and out. He got a bounce and it was a good play on his part to stick with it, but he got a bounce when he was able to bank the puck in off the goaltender. So, I think it is a confidence thing. We've talked before about, was it mental, was it physical? I do think a lot of it was confidence, and he just looks like he's a little bit more invested. In that game in Tampa, he had 7 shot attempts, but he only had 1 shot on goal. And obviously he needs to put more pucks on the net. But what I liked about him having 7 shot attempts in a game like that is that's 7 times he's got the puck in a shooting position in the offensive end. That's what I want to see. I want to see him with the puck in his stick with an opportunity to make some things happen. And it was just a good sign at the tail end of the road trip that he was, in fact, able to convert, because this team needs him. You know how much he means to this team, and we couldn't just keep going here saying, oh, he did this, there's a flash here and a flash there, and it looks like he's working hard. He needed a bottom line, and the team needed a bottom line from him, and he provided here the last couple of games. And so that's a good sign for him, hopefully, that he can carry this on and continue to build, because let's be honest, I still think that there's more to give. I'm not sure that start to finish, he has been the best player on the ice, hands down. He's been in the discussion here these last couple of games, but I think he is building to bigger and better things, and that's a good sign for him in the hockey club.
Jeff, I don't think there's anybody who thought Tyler Motte would end up leading this team in scoring on this road trip. You had the stat of the night there, my friend. He had a good trip. His line had a good trip. Those guys were the whole 5 games. They were showing well.
Yeah, and it's great that they get some secondary scoring. It was after that game in Los Angeles, right out of the Christmas break, that Bruce Boudreau was lamenting that it can't just be Miller and Hughes and Horvat every night. And then early in this road trip, it wasn't those three guys. It was Motte, it was Lamico, it was Highmore. And it's been a while since the Canucks have had sort of regular scoring from the bottom of the lineup. Now, earlier in the road trip, that was great. They just weren't getting any primary scoring. You saw at the back end here that they were starting to round it out a little bit. I thought it was interesting last night, post-game, Bruce Boudreau, he said that he thinks that now is a checking line, a matchup line. I think he better be careful, though. If you look at the underlying numbers last night, they got crushed. Like, it was not a great night in terms of spending a lot of time in the offensive zone. But in a 2-1 hockey game, when you're trying to protect the lead, they're able to extend it. And so sometimes it's not about the underlying numbers. It's what did you ultimately do? And that's where I come back to the fact that Dave Rittich has let in some bad goals in his NHL career. I think you add that one to the list, but it looked pretty good to the Vancouver Canucks. And so I just like the fact that a guy like Motte is stepping up and contributing and making things happen. A lot of talk around him. I know that you guys have discussed it as well. But the more that he's on the score sheet, the more that he's in highlight packages, the more teams around the league. I mean, the league is so well scouted, but this can only be driving his value up if, in fact, he turns out to be a trade chip for the Vancouver Canucks.
You're bang on. The one negative that we have to talk about, Jeff, is the PK, and the penalty killing on this trip was not great. They got to find a way to solve that.
Yeah, pretty incredible to me, Rick, that they go through this gauntlet of all these top teams in the National Hockey League, all of them out on the road where Bruce Boudreau doesn't have last change, and they give up 8 even-strength goals in 5 games against some of the best teams in the league. 8 even-strength goals. If they could keep it at even strength, they can compete with anybody. But they give up 6 power play goals. The penalty kill is 6 for 12. It really feels like after a little bit of leveling off there after the coaching change, we're kind of right back to where we were in November. How about this for a statistic? The Canucks have given up 37 power play goals in 39 games, so almost 1 per game. But beyond that, 11 times, and Washington the other day was the latest, 11 times they've given up multi-power play goal games. The Pittsburgh Penguins have given up 10 power play goals, period. And 11 times the Canucks have had multi-power play goal games against it. It has cost them. It didn't cost them in Washington because their power play scored twice as well. And last night the special teams were a saw off again. But it's a dangerous way to play. And they do have to figure out with this personnel. Again, it looked like they got the Bruce bump for a handful of games there, but it is the same group. And you just wonder how much longer can they go with penalty killing that 50% of the road trip. In some ways, it's incredible that they ended up with 2 wins with that kind of or that lack of success. So yes, very much a red flag. There were a lot of positives on the road trip, but they do have to figure out a way to shore up the penalty kill.
And quickly, Jeff, Matheson versus Draisaitl, has a player or a coach ever gotten pissy with you?
Of course.
I think a lot of players would tell you that I've been considered pissy by them.
There you go.
Yeah, look, you do this long enough. We've all done this long enough. Ask 1,000 questions, you're going to rub some people the wrong way. It happens. It is part of the business. I think that these are tough times with Zoom because they don't get a chance to just take it behind closed doors and patch it up. I have no idea the next time that Jim Matheson is going to be in the same room as Leon Draisaitl. I'm going to stand on the media side. I think it probably could have been handled better on both ends. But let me say this, that Jim Matheson has been at this a while. Something tells me that he has written an awful lot of glowing pieces about Leon Draisaitl because it's warranted, and Draisaitl's play has been that good. And now that things are slipping a little bit for this hockey team, we know what Draisaitl means to the Oilers. I think he wears a letter. He's got to take some accountability for the problems that are going on there. And so cuts both ways, but it makes for good fodder for the rest of us outside that market.
Yeah, we can criticize all we want, but it helped out our show today. Jeff, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.